Hi, friend. Do you remember what you're going to say when I say hi? Say hi, Miss M. So, today we're talking about how to play with our recyclables. Um, if you've been following along, you know we started our week and our first couple activities have been all about using our recyclables. I like how this is the one I hold up. Here, we'll do this one. So I'm going to talk to you about how we're going to set up a pretend play situation in your own home. So moms and dads, this will really help you kind of just get ideas again. You can take this even further. You can scale things back and do some very simple constructive play situations. I'm going to go through a couple ideas for that as well. But in speech, one of the things I like to do is play. If I don't say anything enough, at least I've told you to always be playing with your children and making sure that we're working on our language skills through play, because play sets up such great foundations for language, receptive language, expressive language. If you're working on your speech sounds, it's still a great way to incorporate some practice into play, especially, you know, if we're working on slowing down our speech so our friends can understand us and things like that. There's great opportunities to practice. So when we're talking about playing with all our recyclables that we've collected this week, we are going to talk about how to set up a situation in a grocery store. And the reason I thought of grocery store was because I would assume some of our recyclables are cereal boxes, milk cartons, water bottles, things like that. The fun thing about this too is we can use our imagination. So maybe this isn't a tissue box in our grocery store. Maybe this is a box of Cheez-Its. We might want to do that if we're working on a little bit of that abstract thinking. If that's a little bit more challenging, we're going to start with an actual box of Cheez-Its. So if you don't have Cheez-Its, maybe use a box of something you actually have and call it what it is, right? But that's, again, an area where you know maybe you want to go that far or maybe you don't. Sorry, my phone was ringing. Okay, so we are going to start with talking about when you're pretend playing. So let's use our grocery store example. Now, if you don't want to do grocery store, you do whatever you want. But when we're doing these pretend play examples, it is important to have a context that your child is familiar with or something that you've been talking about and have or read about. So if you're going to do, let's say you're going to do a play activity and it's you're setting up a vet shop. If your child hasn't been to the vet before, make sure that you're reading a story about what it's like in a vet shop and kind of setting up that scenario in their mind, so when they are pretend playing, they kind of have an idea of the different roles of what happens there, and what kinds of things are there. When you're working on vocabulary, that's really important. So we're building a familiar context. So when I was thinking about what to do with recyclables, the thing I thought was grocery store, because I would assume many of my little friends have been to a grocery store. They might understand what you say when you say, Mommy's going to the grocery store, Mommy's going to Ralph's, or anything. So you might name your grocery stores, the name that your child would most familiarize with that. I know mine would be Trader Joe's. Anybody else with me? And then you want to set it up kind of in a similar way as a grocery store, right? So we want to make sure we have a vitamin aisle if you're specifically using something like this. You might want to have, you know, the aisle where all the cooking and spices are, and you might have your coconut oil jars or your olive oil jars or, you know, your taco seasoning. You'll want to have a produce section, right? And that's big for me. That's where I shop, is all the produce. You might want to have, you know, not that you might use this for toilet paper, but if you had, you know, some toilet paper to put up in there or something like that, to have that section of the grocery store. I know that's been an important one for a lot of us lately. And then you might want to have things that are very realistic. So again, like if you did a cereal aisle, that'd probably be very, not only important, but very relatable for your little ones. So you might have real boxes, an empty box of Cheerios, an empty box of Lucky Charms. I don't know why that was the next thing I thought of. Rice Krispies, that's a good one. Um, so you might do that if you have a snack aisle, you know, if you have an empty box of Cheez-Its or something like that, things that really look like what you want them to represent might be a really important way to go for your child so they understand the concepts a little bit better. Some of our little ones might be able to, you know, understand that this isn't a tissue box, it's actually a box of cookies. But sometimes it's not always easy to understand. It's not because it's not believable. I mean, if you told me this was a box of cookies and I looked inside and didn't see cookies, I might get real mad. So just, you know, be aware of that. You might want to use things that are real. So then depending on how many people you have to play with, if you have siblings or if it's just mom and dad, or even just mom, it's okay. What you can do is make sure that you have a role. So one of you is the cashier and one of you is the customer. And then you can always interchange those roles. So then you play it one time and then now your child's the cashier and you're the customer. And you can kind of, that way we get those understanding of what's going on a little bit better because there's some repetition. Another thing, again, if there's more family members, that's even better. You can have, you know, the person that bags the groceries. You can have the person that, oh, and you can use recycled grocery bags. And then you have the cashier. You might have a manager, however detailed you want to get. You know, you might have a Girl Scout outside selling Girl Scout cookies. I don't know, but it's your opportunity to get creative. So some tidbits for this. Again, you have those roles. Now as parents, you might need to be more of a facilitator when this is played and kind of help your child. I keep wanting to say student because that's what I call them. But you might want to help your child through it a little bit and play this one time. And then the next day you might play it again and help a little bit less. So the first day you might be, you know, if sister's the cashier and then your child is the customer, you might be kind of next to your child helping them use their language if they're talking to the cashier about what they like to buy, what kind of food they like to eat, what they're looking for. So that just might be something that you're helping with initially, and then you can back off, maybe take a different role later on, maybe take a role that might be like the helper, the employee that is like, you know, kind of roaming the aisles asking if you need any help. And then that way you're still kind of the facilitator, but you've backed off a little bit. So just ideas like that. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I think that's a good start for you, just setting up a make-believe grocery store and you're still using those recyclables. You can always talk about what's recyclable and what's not when you're in the grocery store. That could be a fun activity. And then you want to make sure, just my last little piece of advice, make sure everything obviously is at your child's level. So if you're setting this up in a room, like in the kitchen, the countertops might be too high, right? Make sure that you're willing to be down at your child's level when you're playing and be face to face with him or her instead of towering above, because that might create some holes in our language and our understanding of what's going on if you're talking down. And then I forgot my last point, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. Oh, make sure you're in a room that has maybe some lower shelving so you can kind of play around with where you put things. You could always get a little bit mischievous and put things where they don't belong and make that an opportunity for your child to tell you that it's wrong. So yeah. And then another thing, if we're not, you know, ready to do the grocery store, the pretend play quite yet, and you're working on some more constructive play, what is more fun than building a tower and knocking it over? How many of your little ones come through the room and just want to knock everything over? So why not get some of those recyclable boxes and work on stacking our blocks? Something I love to do, and your little ones might be familiar with this. I put my hand here and I want them to tell me go, or I want them to sign go, or at least give me a look like I'm ready to knock this over. So we work on building and we work on knocking over, and that might be fun, and it creates an interaction with you and your child. A tidbit for that, if you're doing something like stacking or you're doing something that's destructive, right? Always start with the destruction part. So have it ready to go. Like, let's say I'm bringing, or you want to bring your child into a play activity. Build something and then say, oh my goodness, and we knock it over. They can knock it over, you can knock it over, but let them see how much fun that is so that way we can work on building it again. And we build that understanding of first something has to happen, that cause and effect, right? And then we knock it over, because that's always fun. And that's all I got for you. So I hope you've enjoyed some of these little tidbits for you to get you through this week. Again, you don't have to do this all in one day. This could be, if you're doing the grocery store, maybe one day make a list of everything you want to put in the grocery store. Maybe the next day you're kind of building it, and maybe you walk through it, and maybe you play it. But don't feel like you have to just do it in one day. It's always good. I always stress the idea of repetition. So if you are doing that grocery store and we're working on all this language, don't take it away the next day. Maybe play it again, and maybe play it for a couple days over and over. In our preschool, we like to do play activities for a few weeks sometimes, to give you an idea. So sometimes it does take a little bit longer for those language and play skills to kind of settle in, but it's worth it because it's building on that fun element. And that's, I mean, if I'm not having fun, then I may not want to do it again, right? So that was really profound. Anyways, that's all I've got for you on this one. I hope you enjoyed. Again, email with any questions, concerns. Email me successes. I would love to hear about something maybe that your child said that you hadn't heard them say before, or anything that you're finding really helpful and useful, because I do miss your little ones a great deal, and hearing about how well they're doing would just make my day. All right, I'm gonna say bye, friends, and then you say bye, Miss M, okay? All right, bye.